At my father-in-law's funeral, my husband's sister pulled me aside and said, "Don't bother standing with the family. It would look fake." I stood at the back of the church holding my toddler while they took photos in the front pew. A week later, she called asking for help settling the estate. I sent her my answer in an envelope with proof of the will naming me executor. My name's Dana. I live in Terre Haute, Indiana. My husband, Ben, died 2 years ago in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light. He was coming back from a late shift at the factory and never made it home. It was raining that night. I was waiting for him with a bowl of leftover chili and a slice of cornbread. He never walked through the door. Instead, 2 cops did. I was 29. Mia was a year old. I couldn't believe he was gone. I kept hearing the crash in my head. I'd imagine the sound of his phone ringing on the pavement, broken and soaked in blood and rain. At first, his family acted like they cared. His mom brought over casseroles. His sister Carla dropped off baby clothes for Mia.
It didn't last.
After the funeral, they started pulling away. Carla stopped texting. His mom barely returned my calls. I chalked it up to grief. I thought maybe they needed space. But deep down, I felt something colder growing. They didn't want to deal with me. I was a reminder of what they lost. Or maybe they just never liked me to begin with. Walt, my father-in-law, was the only one who didn't change. He kept visiting. He'd take Mia for walks and bring me soup when I was sick. One night, when she was teething and I hadn't slept in 2 days, he came over just to hold her for an hour so I could shower and cry in peace. I never forgot that. Walt got diagnosed with cancer last spring. It hit him hard. He was gone by the end of July. And that's when Carla showed her real face. I came with Mia dressed in black. I showed up early because I knew how this family worked. They wanted to be seen front and center, like grief was a show. Carla came up to me near the door. She didn't hug me.
She didn't even look me in the eye.
She leaned in and said, "Don't bother standing with the family. It would look fake." I didn't answer. My stomach turned cold. I stood in the back pew with Mia on my hip while they filled the front row. They passed tissues and gave each other side hugs like they were being filmed. No one offered me a seat. No one even glanced my way. When the pastor called the family up to view the casket one last time, they all walked up. I stayed back. I didn't want to make a scene. I just stared from where I stood, holding my daughter, trying to keep her from crying. Then someone, I think it was Carla's daughter, pulled out a phone and started taking pictures. Photos. In front of the casket. With the whole family lined up like a damn Christmas card. I couldn't believe it. I left as soon as the service was over. Took Mia home and rocked her until she fell asleep. I felt like I had been erased. But Walt hadn't forgotten me. A few weeks before Walt died, he asked me to come by. He said he had some papers he needed me to hold on to. He was quiet, weak, but sharp. "Don't trust Carla with this," he said. "She's going to try and take control." I don't want that. He handed me a sealed manila envelope and made me promise not to open it until after the funeral. I promised. Then I cried on the drive home because I knew it was real. He was saying goodbye in his own way. I opened that envelope the night after the funeral. Inside was a copy of his new will, dated 3 months before he passed. It named me as the executor of his estate. He also left a letter. In his own handwriting, it said, "Dana, this is what Ben would have wanted. You take care of Mia, and you take care of what's rightfully hers. Carla has a temper and a selfish streak. You know that better than anyone. I trust you to do the right thing." He wasn't wrong. The will made it clear. Mia was to get a trust fund set aside from the sale of Walt's house and his savings. I was the executor. Carla was mentioned only once, as someone who was not to be given control of any assets. A week after the funeral, my phone rang.
Carla.
First time she called me in over a year. "Hey Dana," she said, fake sweet. "Listen, I've been going through Dad's stuff and I think we need to sit down and figure out how to divide everything. I assume you'd want to help. I mean, you were kind of part of the family." I didn't say anything for a second. Then I told her I'd get back to her.
She had no idea.
No clue about the will. No clue about the papers sitting in my drawer. So I made a copy of the will. I highlighted my name. I printed out Walt's letter too. I put both into an envelope and mailed it to her. No note. No smiley face. No explanation. Just the truth. The next morning she called, screaming, "You've got to be F asterisk 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 ing kidding me. Dad would never do this. This is a scam." I let her finish. "Carla," I said, calm, "you can contest it if you want. Walt's lawyer is already in the loop. But just so you know, he updated the will for a reason."
You know that.
"I know that. You think you're family? You think you're entitled to anything? You were just a phase. A weak little phase in Ben's life. He's gone, Dana. Let it go." That's when I said it. "No, Carla. You let it go. You lost control. And now I have it. Legally. Permanently." I hung up. And that's when the real war started. After I hung up on Carla, I expected silence. Maybe some angry texts. Maybe she'd rant to her Facebook friends about how I stole her father's legacy. But I didn't expect what came next. 3 days later, she showed up at my house. Unannounced. I had just put Mia down for a nap when I heard the knock. It wasn't gentle. It was loud, impatient. I looked through the peephole and saw Carla on my porch, arms crossed, lips tight. I cracked the door. "You shouldn't be here." "I'm not here to fight," she said. "Just talk." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She handed me a folder. "This is what Dad would have wanted," she said. I opened it and saw a stack of printed emails. Letters. Photos. Some were from years ago. She had gone through everything. Emails between her and Walt, screenshots of text messages, even an old birthday card from Walt to her where he wrote, "To my favorite daughter." It was pathetic. "This doesn't change anything," I told her. "The will is legal. I've spoken with his lawyer. The trust for Mia is protected. I'm not taking anything. I'm managing it." She stepped forward, eyes burning. "You think you're smarter than me? You're not. You married into this family, Dana. You were temporary. This is my father. My blood." I didn't flinch. Walt trusted me with his final wishes. "You can throw as many emails at me as you want, but I'm not backing down." Then she said it. "You're going to regret this." She turned and walked back to her car. I stood on the porch for a while after that. Not scared, just angry. Tired. This wasn't grief anymore. This was a power grab. A week later, I got a notice from the county clerk. Carla had filed a motion to challenge the will. She hired a lawyer in Indy. She claimed Walt had been manipulated, that I coerced him while he was on medication, that I pressured him into naming me executor. The lawyer she hired was aggressive. Sent me a letter demanding full disclosure of all financial documents. Claimed Mia's trust fund was unjustified. They wanted me removed as executor and the estate handed over to Carla. I called Walt's lawyer, an old guy named Howard Dempsey. He'd been handling the family's legal stuff for years. He was already expecting it. "She's bluffing," he said, "but it's going to cost her. And it's going to cost you if we let this drag out." I didn't have money for a long fight. I worked at the school cafeteria part-time. I had no backup, but I wasn't about to roll over either. So I did something Carla would never expect. I went digging. Walt kept a box of documents in his attic. He called it his "oh shit" box. He told me once if anything ever happened, that box had everything someone would need to know the truth. I called his old neighbor, who still had the house keys. Asked if I could look through some of Walt's things. She agreed. Said Carla had already been by, grabbing stuff in garbage bags. Figures. I went up to the attic, found the box under a tarp. It was full, letters, receipts, handwritten notes. But what caught my eye was a manila folder labeled Carla, Private Loans. Inside were copies of checks, bank transfers, even IOUs in Carla's handwriting. She had borrowed over $47,000 from Walt in the last 8 years. Not a dime had been paid back. But it was the notes that mattered. One, dated just last year, said, "Loan number 6, $10,000 for Greg's DUI lawyer." She swore she'd repay. Told her it was the last time. She's lying again. I scanned everything. Took photos. Made copies. I called Howard and told him what I found.
That'll do, he said.
Let's see how she feels once we bring that to court. Before we could even file a response, Carla made her next move. She didn't back down. She doubled down. One morning, I dropped Mia off at daycare and came home to find a yellow notice taped to my front door. It was from Child Protective Services. I stood there, staring at it. My hands were shaking. It said someone had filed an anonymous report. The complaint claimed that Mia was living in an unsafe environment, that she was often left alone, and that the mother appears mentally unstable and overwhelmed. I knew exactly who sent it. The CPS visit was scheduled for the next day. I had to spend the entire night cleaning every corner of my house, digging up Mia's medical records, lining up texts from her pediatrician, even printing out my work schedule to prove I was never leaving her alone. My friend Angela, who worked at the school with me, agreed to be a witness if needed. When the caseworker showed up, I was ready. She looked around, saw a safe, clean house, a stocked fridge, toys everywhere. She asked questions. I answered everything calmly. I even showed her the paperwork from the estate. By the time she left, she looked almost embarrassed. This doesn't look like a legitimate concern, she said. But we have to investigate every report. I nodded and smiled. But inside, I was boiling. Carla had gone too far. I called Howard. I want to go public, I said. You mean file? He asked.
No.
I mean expose her. He was quiet for a moment. You sure you want to take it there? She tried to take my kid from me.
He sighed.
All right then. We'll do it. We filed a formal complaint with the probate court, not just defending my role as executor, but attaching the proof of Carla's unpaid loans and the forged repayment notes. That was the twist. One of the IOUs looked like it had been backdated, but the bank account on it didn't exist until a year later. Howard brought in a forensic document analyst. Within a week, we had enough evidence to allege fraud. Now she was under scrutiny. But I wasn't done. The court filing became public. And once it did, people started talking. Ben's cousins, neighbors, even Carla's own aunt reached out to me. She left a voicemail saying, I always knew that girl would screw up the family one day. Glad someone's finally standing up to her. Carla's image started to crack. Then I got a call from someone I didn't expect, Carla's husband, Greg. He sounded tired, beaten. I didn't know she went after you like that, he said. I thought it was just about the will. I didn't know she filed CPS. That's messed up. I didn't know whether to believe him. But he kept talking. She's losing it, Dana. She's obsessed with control. She's going to ruin everything. I asked him why he was calling. I'm leaving her, he said. She doesn't know yet. But I'm done. And you might want to check your mailbox tomorrow. The next day, I got a thick manila envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, copies of Carla's text messages, screenshots from Greg's phone. Some of them showed her bragging about burning Dana's life down. Others were her laughing about using an anonymous CPS tip as leverage. I handed it all to Howard. He just smiled. She's toast. We ended up in probate court 6 weeks later. The courtroom wasn't fancy, just gray walls, plastic chairs, and the stale smell of old paper. Carla sat at the plaintiff's table, dressed in black again like she was still at the funeral. Her lawyer looked uncomfortable. Greg wasn't with her. I sat on the other side with Howard. I had Mia's daycare teacher, my boss from the school, and a folder full of evidence. I was nervous, but I wasn't scared. Not anymore. Carla tried to make it all about emotion. Her lawyer stood up and painted me as the manipulative widow who inserted herself into family business. He talked about Walt being vulnerable and said I took advantage of a sick man to gain control of the estate. Then Howard stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush. He just walked the judge through everything. The original will, the trust documents, Walt's letter. Then he handed over the forensic analysis, showing Carla had forged at least one repayment note. And finally, the screenshots from Greg. When the judge saw the CPS text, he frowned. Did your client report this child to CPS as a strategy during state negotiations? He asked her lawyer. The guy shifted in his seat. I'm not aware of that, Your Honor. Well, you are now. Then Howard made it simple. This isn't just about inheritance. This is about control. Dana didn't ask to be executor. Walt chose her. Carla's trying to rewrite history because she's angry that her father didn't trust her. Carla stood up. She tried to yell something about how I was a fraud and stole her family. The judge shut her down fast. I've seen enough, he said. The judge upheld the will. Fully. He confirmed me as executor. He approved the trust for Mia and gave me full power to manage the estate. Then he turned to Carla. I find your behavior troubling. You filed a false report to CPS, misled this court with forged documents, and wasted significant resources on a personal vendetta. He referred her for investigation on fraud charges. Didn't arrest her right there, but said the state would review potential criminal conduct. I sat there stunned. Then I looked across the room and saw Carla's face. It was pale, quiet, stunned. She didn't say a word. She didn't look at me. She walked out alone. The estate was settled quietly after that. Walt had more money than I realized, 2 pensions, a decent savings account, and the house sold fast. The trust for Mia was solid. I didn't take a dime for myself. Just covered legal fees and set aside money for Mia's school. I did make one change to the trust. I added a clause that if Mia ever wanted to give part of it to someone in the family, she could, but it had to be her choice when she turned 25. I wanted her to have the power they all tried to steal from her. Greg filed for divorce. I never spoke to him again. Last I heard, Carla moved to Ohio to live with some distant cousin. Word got around that no one wanted to deal with her. I'm not proud of everything I said during that time. I was angry. I let it fuel me. But I never lied. I never manipulated. I did what I had to do to protect my daughter and her future. They tried to erase me at Walt's funeral, told me I didn't belong, called my daughter a bastard, tried to tear me down with lies. But in the end, I didn't have to destroy them.
They did that all by themselves.